Hi Manjula, Varun.
Hi.
Madhu is in hiding.
What's up?
I said Madhu is in hiding. Did you study anything? Did you read anything? So first half an hour is yours, right?
I read this much.
Wow, that's a lot. That's like a book. That much.
No, not the thickness of the book. It means so much now if I show this.
Even that can be a lot.
Okay.
Monica must have read. I mean, she's a studious girl.
What is about? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Monica must have come prepared. She would have read a lot of that.
She may be read, but how much she understood?
Oh, don't worry about that. That's you got the next 10 years. You guys worry too much about that. Even I don't understand most of it, which is why I'm transferring responsibility to you guys now.
Like that I've read, I don't know how much I've got, how much I've understood. I don't know how much I remember also.
What did I ask you? I didn't ask you whether you understood
Yeah, I read.
that much.
Hi. Hi, Vishwas. Hi,
Yeah,
everyone.
मैं पढ़ाई
Hi.
की कि नहीं?
हाँ
पढ़ाई की कि नहीं?
हाँ दो रीडिंग्स पढ़ी.
Oh, very good. दो
हाँ
paragraph, दो article.
दो articles.
अरे very good. Enough. बहुत है.
Yeah. Try to explore that
पढ़ाई
metaphor.
करती है नहीं, सो गई होगी हर बार.
मतलब आज ही पढ़ी. मतलब पढ़ के आया.
अच्छा.
हाँ.
Constantly eating, man.
हाँ. Wait, I'll just. एक तो क्या आ जाता है? I hate this.
पढ़ाई की कि नहीं हितेशी?
Yes, yes, sir. पढ़ाई कर ली. I don't know. 3-4 articles. After a while मैं कौन भूल गई थी. मैं सिर्फ पढ़ती जा रही थी. मैंने बहुत सारा पढ़ लिया. Transference.
तो पढ़ाएगी आप?
नहीं. No. इतना complicated है. और इतना simple भी है. But then it was like partial transference. What was that?
Impartial transfer.
not that. Metaphoric transfer, and then I don't know. What was the third one? I forgot. Direct.
Tom is already scratching his head.
I don't know. But that was so confusing because there's literally no difference between it. I don't think they can say it too. I'll write to them.
Means?
What's the third name of that? I wrote it somewhere. Wait. They're like 3 different transfers, and then between the 2 of them, there's literally no difference. Wait, I'll tell you which one.
Specific, non-specific.
Conscious maintenance and unconscious maintenance. Is that one what you're talking about?
Metaphoric
No.
and isomorphic.
Specific,
Yes,
non-specific,
that one.
and metaphoric.
That one. Yes.
So yeah, specific,
Ram.
non-specific
Yes.
is like the subtypes. There's a
I
comment.
completely agree with them. We discussed for so long, then I read about it and I was like, you are right, man. Every second of it.
Kaddu, did you read?
Just started with your notes of September, as I mentioned, which is.
You were not supposed to get my notes.
But then you have posted that, and
I know, galti ki, I took it out.
I started reading on types of transfers, and yeah, I'm still reading. Not that I have read a lot, but yes.
100 crores.
But it connected so well about your notes. It just flew that way. This is how it goes in mind. And the factors of transfer, what affects transfer, those are the things which I'm giving thought over or I'm reflecting still. Because I'm currently into some of the, I wouldn't say product trainings, but yeah, skill-based trainings. And obviously a transference in those makes difference because I'm talking about communication here. And making people learn how to communicate, I feel is a huge piece. Not that I can teach them, but yeah, what affects their transfer is what I read. And then I was taking this session. So I was trying to reflect at that point of time what would help best for their transfer. So environment and attitude of the participant, that made a hell of a difference. So I had two batches. The first batch, there were a couple of participants who obviously switched off their camera, and they were continuous there with me on the chat. Okay, so responses were coming and flowing. However, I still have a doubt because of one language barrier. English communication is what I was basically taking sessions about. So language barrier and their attitude towards acceptance made a difference. As against another batch, I wouldn't say to transfer to place right away, but I could at least get responses that I felt that they were, in the flow and they kind of had taken up in case they had to do something related to that skill. That's my experience of this week.
Okay. So you remember what we agreed, right? What did you say you guys would do?
Make groups, make a reading group and do that. Promise to do a couple of things out of those 35 things that we promised. I remember.
And then?
Of course we did say yes, guys.
Yes, and communicate
We
on,
did it.
yes. I missed the meeting though, but.
We actually met.
And
we
then?
actually met in Mumbai. Yes.
You actually met in Mumbai, really?
Yes, we all did. We had a really long chat. Yes. It all happened.
Okay. And then after you meet during the week, what were you supposed to do?
Reflect.
Right. So
Come up
should we
with
spend
questions.
the next couple of hours in reflection?
Did I say something?
Monica?
Come up with questions.
Thank you. So I'm waiting.
So I have words. Okay, I know that for some might be obvious, but for me it's not. And I would like an example. What's the difference between isomorphic and homomorphic metaphors?
Can I assume that you understood metaphoric? Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to answer that question directly because there's a lot I don't know either.
Okay.
But I realize that as we go deeper and deeper into this topic of transfer, it gets really complex. And it gets, and as educators for, if you're not in therapy, meaning if you're not practicing or learning about metaphors to use in counseling sessions, then there's a lot we really don't need to know. Okay, so let me just backtrack a bit.
Sorry, could you repeat that Sorry. So you mean to say if there are, if the usage here is not about counseling sessions, you don't need to be in depth about the basics
Isomorphic,
of transference
homomorphic,
or
you
the
don't
features
need to
of
know it.
transfers.
Yes, you're right. Don't need to know that
Okay.
much.
Okay.
And if you really want to get really confused,
Yeah.
I think we can send you some text. I think Madhvi attended that session, right? Madhvi,
Yeah,
you attended that session where
my
they
guess,
dug even deeper into how many different types of metaphoric there were.
my guess
Yeah.
is, yeah.
So here's my take on this whole transfer thing. The simpler methods are hard enough. And I think the difficult part is not the theoretical piece, it's the practice piece. So, for example, if I said, okay, you've conducted an activity and let's say you want to ask that transfer question, what will you ask? Now, the answer is not as simple as framing that question. The answer to that question comes from what you are doing, which group you're doing it, and what it is that you are teaching them, or what that content is. So, the kind of questions you ask for transfer depend largely on what you want to see happen in the end. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, uh, so isomorphic and homomorphic transfer is both metaphoric, but I am not going to go into the details of those two because I think understanding metaphoric transfer is hard enough. Well, I wouldn't say understanding it, it's applying it that's hard enough. Okay? So, what I would like to do is okay, that's question number one. That's the only question so far. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to give them a
Yeah,
quiz.
because
Yes.
uh, yeah, there's a question like, so I was reading this metaphors and isomorph by Michael Gass and Simon Priest. इसमें in one of the first one of the first paragraph about transfer, it says that learn uh yeah, so yeah, learning that occurs in this environment may or may not be successfully applied to other environments such as the job, within the family or in other social matters. Uh, so what's your and from a larger conversation of what we have been practicing in deep, it is not about anyone else, but it's all about self. So and these two brings a kind of a polarity kind of a situation, or not a kind of very contrasting situations.
Which
What's
article
your
is
take?
that?
Huh?
Which article is that?
The journal, this one, using metaphors and isomorphs to transfer learning in adventure education. Michael Gass, Simon Priest.
Okay, give me a second.
Yeah.
And where is that? On which page?
First paragraph, page number 18. First paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth line. Yeah.
Page number 18. Okay.
18. वो ट्रांसफर में नीचे ही लिखा हुआ है, 9th line
Ninth line in the introduction or under transfer?
on the transfer.
Okay. Learning that occurs in this environment. Okay, transfer represents the process of integrating elements of one learning environment into another. Is that clear so far?
Yep.
So we, in adventure, for example, we can use rafting or kayaking or trekking or archery or any of these adventure sports and transfer learning from that one environment to another. Okay.
Okay.
The learning environment in adventure education is typically characterized by small groups with one or two facilitators engaged in challenging activities involving inherent tasks and necessitating the use of personal competence.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the personal competence becomes important in that
Okay.
statement. That depending on where I am in my competency with that activity,
Hmm.
the metaphor might change. The connections that I draw may be different from yours.
Perfect. Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Learning that occurs in this environment may or may not be successfully applied to other environments, such as on the job, within the family, or in other social matters. May not.
Yeah.
So the
Hmm.
the ability to make that connection lies is dependent on one, the facilitator's ability to frame questions
Hmm.
and make connections, an understanding of the audiences or the client's scenario and where they come from, what kind of workplace they're in, and what they are facing.
Hmm.
And third
But
is the client's mindset about where they are within that experience.
hmm.
Does that make sense? So
It.
I think the underlying words are may or may not be.
Hmm.
I think the point he's making is look, it's dangerous to try and think that everything can be transferred.
Yeah. Got it.
And it is a concern.
Yeah, because most of the time, a lot of things happen. Like we tend to take all these small learnings in everyday life. We tend to reflect, and what has happened in past is all the joy of those activities is lost if we every time dissect it and try to learn from it.
If we what?
If we dissect it and try to learn from that, every small activities, we can reflect on any kind of thing which happens. And, but many times the joy of that activity or joy of that action is lost when every time there needs to be a learning to be made.
You know what? Don't even go there.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Because first of all, um, most of the stuff that we do in a non-reflective environment
Hmm.
is have fun.
Hmm.
Okay, reflection doesn't come easy. We know that. Now you're telling me, "Arey yaar, don't spoil that activity because then I won't have fun." You're asking me to think about something that I should be enjoying from the feeling aspect of it. Am I getting you right?
Hmm.
It is a common response of groups to activity. They want to stay engaged in the activity.
Hmm.
And the moment you invite a situation in which you ask these reflective questions, that's the kind of response you will get. Yes
Okay.
or no?
I sense that we are on different page, but pata nahi.
No, no, this is important. You know why?
Huh. No, I don't know
Because
why.
if a client is saying that, you don't spoil the fun by asking questions. Is that,
नहीं
am I
शायद
getting
मैं
you?
मैं वो मतलब नहीं था शायद से मैं अपना क्वेश्चन या मैं अपना कंसर्न जो मैंने बाद में बोला वो मैं एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पाया। मेरा कंसर्न ये था कि कई बार हम लोग ऐसे जनरली कुछ छोटा सा एक्टिविटी होती है,
Yeah,
नॉट एक्टिविटी बट
अंग्रेजी,
कुछ करते
भैया,
हैं। सपोज
टंडन जी, अंग्रेजी,
जी
Monica doesn't
या सॉरी
understand English. Sorry,
या
sorry. Well,
yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. So many times we tend to learn from a regular thing. What we a daily chore can also teach you a lot. You know, it tends to do
can,
that.
Amit, you're talking of can, and
Yeah,
I'm saying I'm not so sure that it does,
okay,
which is why there are people called educators, which is why children go to school.
perfect. Yeah,
Now,
got it.
got it?
Got it.
Okay. Nice.
Well, I want to know where you were going with that. What happens when your client says, "I really don't want, like, stop asking me questions."
Yeah.
I want to know where you were going with that.
I think the point I was making is that personally, I like to take the word, I like to throw away the word learning in any session that I'm running. I, I have a problem with that word. And the problem is, in my head, and I've noticed, the moment you ask a learning type question, people will shy away. I mean, for me, the worst question is, what did you learn? Unless it has a context. A lot of us, in the process of learning, reflection, and processing, if you let's call it processing, that's one of the first questions we ask. Okay, now you've done the activity. What did you learn? Damn, was I? And they're right. They're saying, was I supposed to learn something? Now, we didn't do our homework as facilitators. We didn't front load. We didn't talk about the scenario we were presenting. We didn't give them a story. We just threw them into the deep end by giving them a bunch of props and toys and saying, this is what you have to do. Now, so they're not making any connections at all. They're just seeing it as an activity. And that's why a lot of us in the outdoor education industry are stuck with activities. I stopped doing raccoon circles at one point. You know why? Because I must say, I think about over 5 years that I was doing it. How many of you have been on a raccoon circle program? Right. Out of the 5 years that I did it, I didn't see any change in the way people were functioning. They weren't even bringing new activities into play. They was just doing the old thing. And when I watched them, and I had an opportunity to watch many of them in action because I went out as a campus chief. And I said, you attended that program. What's your story? Why are you not doing new activities? And the answer is, sir, I don't have the props. Oh, is that an answer? And my struggle has grown over time, and I'm saying somebody who attends 2 or 3 days on just activities, and then 2 years later tells me that they've forgotten the activities because they didn't get a chance to run the activity because they didn't have props. There's a big gap there. And the natural question for me was, why is transfer not happening? And my answer that I came up with was really so damn stupid, it's unbelievable. None of them had their own playbacks. They were depending on organizations and the people who hired them to keep those props. And even when the props were made ready, they did not reach into them. Okay? Now, do you see where I'm going with this? I'm saying we are at a completely different place. This is a bunch of people who are saying they're interested in transfer. Great. Now, here's what happens, and which is why I haven't done it so far. And it confounds me that I should even do it. And thank you for being here. But here's the gap. Let's make some assumptions. We're all educators. We all address groups, either indoors or outdoors. We have opportunity for practice. We're attending this course because we have got opportunity and we want to go back and apply it. Then we attend a program that, let's say, runs activity. And you learn a few activities. Then you realize that activities by themselves don't necessarily teach anything. It's what we do before, during, and after the activity as educators that changes what happens with our audiences. We call it a front load or a metaphor, interventions, and a debrief. Now you discovered that. So now you've got two things linked. You've got the activity and you've got the reflection. Now, reflection up to a point is okay, and we are already hitting a wall with the reflection piece. And audiences are turning around and saying, why are you asking all these questions? Because we didn't set them up for a learning process. We just set them up for an activity. Are you seeing the difference? Most of us, many of us in the outdoor industry, I'm just talking about the outdoor industry because I know many of you come from different spaces, but in the outdoor industry, because the environment is so powerful and we use activities, we just let the activity rule the day and the experience. And if something happens, great. If nothing happens, then I'll try. And these people keep coming back to me and saying this thing, which two questions can I ask? So here's my take. Very clearly, for me, the intention behind attending any of those courses and even wanting to do any of this is possibly missing. And I think that's the big struggle. So when I reached out to you last time and I said, guys, we're doing this transfer thing. You want something from it. I can keep giving you stuff, not a problem. And we talked about it and you said you would do something and you've read up stuff, right? Hopefully you have. And you have questions and we're throwing them here. This is a good beginning because what I'm really doing is transferring the responsibility to you and saying, I'd like to hear what you have to say. What questions are you coming up with? Hiteshi, does that answer your question? It's a long-winded answer, but I think it kind of covered a lot of ground as to where the struggle is. Okay, next question.
Vishwas, when we talk about transfer, so when the transfer happens, does it become our conditioning as well?
It could. Yeah, I mean, it layers it, yes.
So when we say a transfer is direct or indirect, so ultimately, if the transfer is happening, is it like, so you're conditioned that way now, it's your new conditioning?
Not necessarily, not yet.
if a transfer has happened, that means it has become your conditioning now.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. Continue.
so that means we are saying that whenever we see a changes, I don't know, does it very clear when you see a transfer or you feel a transfer? I am just stuck on this thing only, like this.
Listen, you attended the 3 days, right?
Yeah.
Uh, did you take any of that into your practice?
Yeah, I took those cards and playbacks, and when you say that playback thing, I could understand it why you're frustrated that time also. And now, yeah, and so I made sure that next time I go, I should have that. I even ordered that. No, cards haven't reached me yet, it's still in Delhi. But yeah,
But think about this. Let's make some assumptions. Let's say you got the cards and you had your next program, and have you used any of the things that you learned on those 3 days?
I didn't go any programs after that lockdown happened.
Yeah. So okay. So now think about this. Making an assumption that you used those cards and ran an activity. Okay.
Hmm.
Making an assumption here that you
Yeah,
had a program, you used the cards, you got the cards, you ran an activity. Would you say transfer has happened?
that's what I'm asking.
I'm
Like,
asking you. You learned something on those 3 days. You went and did it, practiced it, did it with a bunch of kids 3 weeks later. Would you say transfer has happened?
I don't know for the kids. For me, it did happen. But
We're talking about you. We're not talking about the kids. We're talking about
I,
you.
yeah, for
You're
me, it happened. Yeah,
huh?
so yeah, for me, it happened. So
It happened, right? Hold on.
yeah,
Hold on.
yeah,
Has that become part of your conditioning?
yeah. Because next time now, when I'll go for a program, I'll make sure that my cards are with me or my playback is with me. It becomes my new habit when I want to say that. If the transfer has
You got
happened,
your
it
answer.
should, huh?
You got your answer.
Now, secondly, what happens that I again take on a one program and next time again, I just go my see when you're in a program, when you said that.
You don't need to explain. You do it once, then you forget, then you remember it, then you do it
Huh.
again.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like jumping. And again, second scenario, my environment. Like when you said you have your own prop bag and you want to run an activity, but your environment says we'll go by the traditional activities we have been doing, like the basic ones. We'll go for pipe and marble, or we do a traffic jam. But you want to do something new. You want to make the kids want to make a star out of a rope. But they feel that that is not that much of reflection there, but it's more in pipe and marbles. So
So
so now what if I am not able to use it? Like I know that, and I'm yeah, my effort of making a transfer moreover depends on my environment as well.
of course, of course. So
I don't know. It's
yeah,
I guess I'm just venting.
you no, you're not venting. You are as you talk. I don't know if you realize that you are transferring. You're telling me the things we discussed last time. We talked about how important environment is. We
Maybe.
said that if there is no support, then transfer becomes difficult. You're telling me a lot of people come back on a training program will tell you, yeah, you're telling me this, but at the workplace, this is what they are telling me.
Yeah, and there's always when I'm with you on a class, we talk about a very healthy environment, how we should behave and what should be our thing. But as a one person, when you go to a setting which are not following those things, so you become like a odd person, or like when you say the same thing when you do a training and you go back, people say, oh, don't come back, you've just gone a training. So they're like, don't tell us this is.
Yeah, they're going to do that.
So it's become difficult. So you become again like them, again the belongingness. When you want to be, you want to feel belonged, you're like, okay,
Racy, who is you?
I'm me.
So don't talk about you, talk about I.
I. So
Is
when
that
I,
is that
yeah,
what
so
you?
yeah.
It's a choice you're making.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the choice I'm making.
You got to decide whether you want to bite the chili or not.
What's that inside the bread?
Oh, by the way, this is the famous vada pav.
Vada pav.
And I'm hungry.
Missing it.
Okay, next.
I
Anybody
have a question related to the earlier description about intention of participant, which affects transfer.
Kadambari, you have a question, then Ram put his hand up. Is there anybody else? Tanya, okay.
So, with regards to, yeah.
On, and I'm hearing other voices
Okay.
besides.
Sorry. So intention, what we mentioned earlier, that a huge piece about transfer is the intention of participants which they come with. So obviously that's a big question. Possibly I have not been able to answer at all. I have done a lot of product mix behavioral all trainings, and I know the intentions about the tick mark activity or not, typical corporate trainings. However, we as facilitator, when you speak about before, during, and after, and say we assuming they are sitting with no intention, for example, and assumption we have the time to work with these participants, okay, long run, because somewhere a day's workshop, 2 days workshop, 2 hours workshop, I don't think we even need to, I don't think I should even ask this question, okay, it doesn't even come under the category. But assumption that we have time of 60 days, 90 days with these people, and number of hours of interaction. As facilitators, what can be triggered during the before time or the after debrief? Obviously, the debrief I don't mind, but the before and during, can we trigger the intention? Is it possible, and if
You can do it
and
anytime.
how?
But
So then,
I have, yeah.
So then intention of the participant, if it was zero, assuming it's zero and they come and sit in the class like total empty heads.
It can never be zero.
Okay. So there is an assumption that they do come with their expectation, XYZ, whatever the case is.
I always walk, the answer is very simple, Kadambari. Principles of invitational education. Walk in there, what is the principle?
Yeah, challenge by choice story and invitational education.
What is the principle of invitational education? Is this about the student or is this about the you?
No, about the student. I mean, you, okay.
People are
Okay, I got the answer. The trigger is lying very ideally.
Okay, I'm going to, anybody wants
people,
to state it?
Yeah.
Anybody wants to state it?
Yeah, she stated.
Monica.
People are always motivated.
Always motivated.
Who is it about?
Participants.
The participants.
No. It's about you.
It's about you.
You walk into that space and saying to yourself, hey, they're motivated. I just need to find out where their motivation is.
By the way, tell me, how much is the turnover of Sangeeta?
That's what it's about.
How much is the turnover of Sangeeta?
So therefore, what you're talking about.
What is the annual turnover? 150 crores per month.
Who's coming from? Oh, Kadambari.
My background. Sorry, we have a lot of work from home people.
Okay. Okay. So, do you get that?
I do.
Even if you have 2 hours.
Wish was, I want to
wait,
ask the same.
No.
Same what she was asking.
Keep quiet. Keep quiet. Wait. Kadambari. Here's the thing. Even if you're doing a 2-hour session, don't sound like you have to play on the back foot. Walk in there and say, how intentional are you guys? And they may understand it, they may not, they may respond, they may, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, there's always somebody out there saying, hey, you know what? I was asked to be here, so I have no idea what this is about.
So there's always a percentage.
Forget, this is not math.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
This affects your attitude. And the question is, whom am I there for? If you can get one person interested, it'll spread. So if you walk in saying they're not interested, they've just been told to be here, you're already gone.
Okay. I kind of got it. I have not walked into even a 1 hour session in that, even a 45 minutes webinar, which I did. And I do have people reverting to me with whatever, would you do some more class and so on and so forth. So yeah, now I kind of reflect on what I went in for. Yeah, I got the answer, sorry.
Next time, think about it outside the door.
Okay.
And when you go in there, just be a blizzard, that's all.
Okay.
Even if you have 1 hour, destroy them. Sorry, whatever that means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disequilibrium.
Okay. Yes, Monica. Do you have a question? No. Ram.
Yeah, hi. Just two quick questions I had. One is, how is like individual characteristic or a person's characteristics influencing a transfer of learning? So if I'm a participant, how much of responsibility I have to initiate the transfer of learning or receive from the facilitator who's facilitating?
There are too many things in that. I'm not sure what your question is anymore.
The question is, how much is
you as an educator or you as a student?
I'm drawing both. I'm saying educator and a student.
Because if you're confused now, I'm going to confuse you even more then.
No, I'm not confused. I'm just asking your opinion or yours on it, saying that how much an individual characteristics depend on the measure of transfer.
I wouldn't even make that connection.
And why is that?
Well, what do I know about somebody else's personality and characteristics?
Okay.
You're sitting there miles away. What do I know?
No, so this I'm trying to relate from, say, 6 tumblers of how a participant is receiving information. If I put it in that.
I have no idea how you are receiving information. Unless I do something very specific to invite you and you accept the invitation to tell me how you're feeling about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but so in order to initiate, say, or in order to convey your message or whatever you're teaching, in order for the transference to happen successfully as much as you're expecting, wouldn't you say that to go from that order? Like to encompass all the theories of, say, 6 tumblers in place, wouldn't you say that is important for initiating transfer?
Yeah, I'm going to do everything possible, yes. I'm going to go through those 6 stages.
Yeah.
I'm going to set up the outside world. I'm going to set up activities. I'm going to do things intentionally. I'm going to prepare to death. I'm going to check on the environment, blah, blah, blah. And then hopefully you will receive it and do whatever you can, because that's where the door for me shuts down.
Okay.
But you choose, you see, that door has a latch only on the inside.
Yeah.
Only you can open it. If you choose to open it and relate with me and share with me what's going on with you, then I know. And I can devise ways of trying to get to know. and all that. But a lot of people will exchange it like in COVID times, right? If somebody, like Preeti was saying, food is left at the door and they're leaving the food there for you. And the choice of opening it and when to open it is yours. So even that's true even between you and me in this relationship. Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. It does.
Good. Great.
Second quick one, which I asked you in the last session as well about or more examples regarding non-specific transfer and metaphoric transfer. Like, can you exactly distinguish between the both? Hello.
Vishwas, are you frozen?
Hello.
Yeah,
When
he's
he is
frozen.
Vishwas is
He's frozen.
Yeah.
I think that they are frozen. When Che and Vishal both are frozen. Must be a network issue.
Yeah, but Ram, I'm just like
You're on
just
mute,
responding.
Vishwas.
Ram, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. It was a very interesting question. What you asked about how does the individual personality or participant's personality impact it? Because I personally feel the same. Since since the participants make the environment, isn't it? I would love in case anyone else have more to input to suggest something, because it's the participants which make the environment, and probably their intentionality, their experience, their everything. That's my understanding.
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, that's what I also believe the same. The transfer initiation will happen if all
Where
the
were
players
we?
fall together.
We,
But
so, Vishwas,
aren't they in
Vishwas?
no control zone? Aren't the students or the participants in the no control zone?
Right. And then Ram was going to give his second question.
Yeah, but Vishwas, Ram and I, while you were away, Ram and I had a brief chit chat about the question itself.
Okay.
The concern is that students are also part of the environment, isn't it? The participants are part of the environment. So does their intentionality, does their experience, that's their personality I feel that it will impact the whole learning, isn't it? Or the
Isn't
transfer.
Of course it will. Of course. We
Hmm.
don't go to transfer yet at this point.
Okay.
Intentionality, certainly. Environment created by the group for itself, certainly. Of course, it all affects. So, what's your point?
No, I think
Is that a control
my
area or no control zone?
it's no control zone. Fair enough.
Yes, Tanya.
Supposed to say.
Yeah. So my question is that is transfer always retrospective? Then that's one mini question, and then there's another one.
Oh, one at a time. I've got a very small brain.
So no, it's always something retrospective. Like you only know it's happened after, right? Like it's like going back and making meaning. So you only know it's happened after it happens, and until then, it's just like
yes.
you don't really know. I don't know. I just felt like clarifying
And many
that.
times.
And yeah, sorry.
Can I just add? And many times we don't even know. We do certain things and we don't necessarily have a memory of where or when we pick that up. Okay? Right. Continue.
And something I got from the last class, which I've been doing, and I'm consciously trying to apply everything that we're learning here in therapy, and trying to keep changing the word participant and educator to like therapist and client, because I really want to see how it fits for me. And so I think now I've started asking also the question to the client about their intentions and what they want to do with the space more. And it's really taking the load off me as a therapist, because often that is something you take on. But now there's this more intentional way of asking about intentions. And then also, because that I haven't been doing, but one thing I try to do is set markers for when transfers happen, especially with therapy. It's like you're meeting week after week for you don't know how long. And I'm asking this also because I want to know if there's another way to do it. But I asked this question, like, what would it look like for you if therapy was working? And we try and list out what they would notice that is different, or in how they would be feeling or dealing with certain things, because otherwise you don't know if you've got there yet, and you can keep doing it for like ever. So that's one way. But then sometimes, like last week, a client came in and said, so I asked this question, and they were, and I usually ask in the first session, and then they were like, no, I'm here because I want a safe space to just be able to share completely unfiltered whatever's going on for me. And I felt like I was trying to make it too like we have to get to the other bank, and they were more like, this is where, this is it, like this is what I want. So that kind of made me feel confused. Does that make sense?
A complete sense. So just using the analogy of the raft and the river and the banks, you're on the, you were, I'm just assuming, okay, you can decide. You're on that content bank and you're saying, my intention is for this client to be able to learn something that they can apply. They're coming to you for that. That's their intention. But every once in a while, and I think often enough, somebody like that will come and say, I'm going to touch this bank. I'm going to keep touching the bank that you are on, but I want to stay in the river. And that's a brilliant place to be, because if you've done whitewater rafting, the fun's not on the bank. All those upheavals, which potentially could be emotional as well and social in the context of their lives, is in the flow of that river. And what they're saying is, and I think especially in therapeutic applications, a lot of clients fear that they won't be able to go to the other bank. And sometimes for me, it sounds like, okay, maybe they're afraid about whether they will make it or not, because now we've got this official relationship of client and therapist. And it's got that format of 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 months, 4 months, whatever. And I've got to get well and I've got to reach the other bank in that period of time. But if somebody comes along like this, I think it's a brilliant opportunity. I think they're already, in my opinion, for me, it's an indication that they're already on the journey to getting well. Because they have recognized, they may not have articulated it, but they have recognized that the other bank is a scary place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, enough sense to, I'll see what happens.
Yep. Yeah. And you can use that language and say, what does it feel like to be in the river? And build that metaphor for them, because they're in that river, and that river is going to go. It's life. It's not stopping for them. But they like to feel the comfort of being on your back, being able to touch your bank, not the other one, because that's what gives them reassurance. It's what gives them strength. It's what gives them a connect to whoever they are. Just the fact, maybe it's just somebody who listens to them. And that's a safe bank. but they know that there's a flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Shashwat.
So I have some follow-up questions on two of the points raised. So just now you said that transfer happens only in retrospect when we kind of reflect on it and see that we did it. So there was a moment during this session when Racy was speaking and asking you things, and you said you just transferred, but she didn't realize it until you pointed it out. So does that mean that transference happened only when you pointed it out and she saw it, or did it happen even before she saw it?
It's happening all the time. We just don't know which moment we want to connect it with in our past.
Okay, so follow up on that.
You know, there are times when you do something which is not characteristic of you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, and you say, damn, where the hell did that come from?
So it's kind of building that connection that, oh, this is where it came from, and that's the transference.
Yeah, but try to understand this. We don't necessarily know which exact moment we're transferring from, but we get a sense that this is, you know, I've learned something, I tried something, it didn't work, today it's working. 10 years ago, I had this experience and now it's working for me. Now I understand what somebody said or did or saw or whatever.
Okay, so then a follow-up question in relation to the conditioning that you spoke about. You said, Racy had asked, like, does it become a part of our conditioning? And you said, yes, when transfer happens, it does. So I saw it kind of like an onion. It becomes a layer on top of your conditioning. But then I started thinking about the whole 3 C's idea and how this whole consciousness thing comes into play. So for example, when I learn something, for example, when I read a book, I try to like use the ideas in my daily life without really filtering it out. But when you say that we must operate from a higher state of consciousness, expanded state, does that mean we're trying to filter out what we've learned when we're trying to transfer it?
It could.
So then so the role that consciousness plays is filtering. Is that what you're saying?
Am I the only one who thinks he went underwater?
I was to ask, why would you filter out? Awareness would be and consciousness would be to filter in and apply.
See, it would be different in different perspectives. So if I am conscious, I will be aware of what I am passing to, say, my students. Is it my biases? Then I have to filter. But it could be something I have picked by observing somebody who's very punctual, and it has become part of me. It has actually now become from conscious to unconscious, and I'm doing it, right? So it need not be filtering all the time.
So it can be filter out or filter in depending on the context and what part of the conditioning is coming in. Okay, got it.
I didn't get what's happening.
Just in relation.
Sorry.
I didn't understand what filtering we're talking about. We're talking about filtering our own transfer.
Kind of like, you know, how you said it becomes a part of our conditioning, the 3 C's idea. When I learned something and now let's say I'm using it all the time, trying to like throw it out. I've learned a new word and I'm going to start using this new word. Does consciousness mean that I must be aware and maybe filter in or filter out that word into my conduct? Or so I was thinking filter out, but as Kadambari said, it could be filtering in. But for other contexts, it could mean filtering out, depending on where we are and who the audience is.
Those of you who might be familiar with the relationship that grid that they've created, consciousness and competence. So what Shashwat's talking about is conscious competence, building conscious competence. That's where learning happens. And then when you get good at it, and what we are talking about as conditioning becomes unconscious competence. That means you don't even know you're doing it. It's like if you belay, I don't know, in the outdoors, and just remember that some of these skills, For example, brushing your teeth. How consciously are you really doing it?
It's a
It's
habit.
become unconscious competence. That means you're not even aware that you built competence. Then a dentist comes along and says, hey, you know what? You've been brushing wrong. Don't ever brush your teeth like this. This is the movement you're supposed to do. And say, wow, really? Okay, I'm going to try that. And then the next morning, you start doing that and you go back to that, you swing back to conscious
Ah,
competence.
it's like you do like this, and there was this example of folding the
That's
hands
it.
like this.
So I said, yeah, you remember? I said, try it. See, and then at some point in time, it becomes as easy. Okay, next question. If there aren't any, then we'll move on. Yes, Preeti.
So, about analogies and metaphors, I've actually very consciously started using them in my sessions now.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it comes in a very unplanned way. Sometimes I feel that I'm more excited about the analogy than the participants are. And, I get into it. And I feel, and they all look at me and they nod their heads. Okay. And somehow I feel very great about it. And but I don't know whether the transfer has really happened, because metaphors are as it is, if it's an analogy or if it's a difficult metaphor. But I generally don't go into such difficult metaphors, but it's difficult to
What's your
understand.
question, Preeti?
So how do I know whether the transfer has happened at that time? It's very
You
difficult.
don't. Hey, you're not, transfer is not happening at that time. It's not immediate. Understanding may be happening, may not be happening. It may take a little time. Now, I started building this metaphor of transference being the river. Remember? The journey on the river. Now, do you notice that we've used a new image today in the beginning? Oh, we haven't even started.
I didn't.
Damn! I gave it away. Okay. So my point is, so this is, you see, what I just did is how you feel in class, and it's great. It's a great place, and you say, yeah, I got it. And don't worry too much at that point in time whether your audience did or not. It's more critical that you got it that day.
Yeah, it's okay, na? So because I get very excited about it. Today I had an analogy about a football match, and it was so amazing. And I thought I was getting more excited because I'm from a family of football players.
You know what? Get excited, because that's when you're building it for yourself. Transfer at that point is happening for you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I got it. And it's the
don't
energy.
worry about it.
And it could be that a certain amount of that energy which I am going through gets transferred, does get transferred, and I don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, some of these deepers, they know, that sometimes I just kind of, I freak out in the middle of classroom and I say, hey, did somebody write that down? Because I won't remember it again.
Because, I get it.
And I think they're great moments, savor them.
Good.
You know what? Just because they didn't understand it on that day is not going to change their lives one way or another. That you understood it is the biggest piece that day. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yes, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tap into the question that just Preeti was asking. And I was thinking, like, for using especially the metaphors, is it not important to know our audience? Because if we are working especially with neurodiverse students, which are on the spectrum, the metaphors will be totally not understood over there. And it will create more confusion. Is it?
Possibly, yes. But Okay. Now, this book has just got me, it's like, how the hell did they think about that? And my point is this, that let's not make any assumptions about anybody. Every audience, whether you're working with challenged children, adults, whoever, every group will have its share of people who struggle with this whole analogy stuff. And it's okay. Sometimes what you're talking about is context. But think about this. Sometimes you can use specific analogies to the group, and sometimes you can use generic analogies. So generic analogies would be, an example would be the river. An example might be mythology, a specific might be mythology or Indian mythology. But then all mythology has a common story and you can relate it to other stories as well. So you've got, if you're working with a corporate group, adult group, then you build a different analogy. But the thing is, you just keep doing it because a whole load of us, okay, historically, we grew up with stories. A lot of the messaging that came from the elders in all cultures has come from stories. I know Tanya will call it what? Narrative. What? Anyway, in therapy, they have a specific word for that. What's that?
Narrative therapy.
What? Folklores?
No, yeah, folklore,
Narrative.
stories.
Narrative
Tanya, what do you
therapy.
call it?
Archetype also.
Yeah, but you can.
Panchtantra ki kahaniyan.
Yeah, and that becomes a narrative in our own lives. And everybody's got a story that they understand. And I think an interesting way of doing it, and I think they do it in therapy, is to learn the story of the client, because then you can talk to them in the language of their story instead of yours. You can build those metaphors and analogies in the context of their lives and their experience rather than yours. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know I understood so much about this thing till you asked questions. So just know that if you read and you ask, then some part of my brain is also getting triggered and transfer is happening.
Transfer is happening.
And I didn't know I knew this till I started articulating it. And I have to tell you, I've been a little nervous about this session. Because I've got my text ready, but I have nothing to, it just didn't feel like it was there. Now, when we get onto that presentation, the content might make a little more sense. So, anybody else? Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but it was wonderful for me to realize that for transference to happen, I have to really think in a different perspective as an educator, which I was not thinking before.
We don't, not just you, Madhu, it's all of us. All of us as educators, we're just doing our job, stepping in there and doing our thing, not really connected to who that person is and where they want to go. And sometimes I think, so connecting it to leadership theory, what's his name? Stephen Covey. One of those 7 habits is keep the end in mind. Now, what he's essentially saying is at the beginning, think about what is it that, and the way we put it or we use it is, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is it that I'm doing it? Not just joy and happiness and whatever else, or job, but is there any place I want to take my audience? And think of this, if a math, geography, history teacher, parent was able to begin to think of that and say, I want my child to be this. Wow. No? Then who cares what percentage they got and whether they broke some glass or whatever, man. It just changes perspective. I know I've been playing this game with my children all these years. And it can be hard because the rest of society and the household is giving you different signals. So ever so often you get told, why are you not doing something about that? Saying, because, hey, that I can't answer that question because in my head I've answered it and saying, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to bump his head. I'm not supposed to go out there and say, are you okay? No. Where's the first aid kit? Do I have my first aid kit? And that's, I think, a big piece of this whole education thing. Okay, where are we? You want to learn something new today, or yeah?
Which was just one last question. I missed out my second question last time. I don't know if it's the right time right now to discuss this or not, but then I was asking about the exact difference between non-specific and metaphoric transfer. Like, where do you draw the line, or how
We
do you
will do that today.
Okay. Sweet. No worries.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's on the agenda. Right. So you got to tell me when you want to break. It's 7:07. 20 minutes. Shall we go dive into this and then take a break after about half an hour? Yeah? Okay. Right. So, do you remember the earlier images?
Yes.
What was the earlier image? And what's
You were on the raft ahead and very pissed off. How do I do all the work?
I wasn't ahead. I was on the bank. You left me on the bank.
No, you were the one who was like trying to take the raft ahead with the pissed off face.
Is that right, guys? There were children on the raft. You were on the raft. I was on the bank, and you decided I was pissed off about something. Okay. What's it today?
You are happy.
We are all excited,
What else?
eager to face the challenges.
Yeah. So
We are
now
in the
you're
water finally. In the water.
Yeah,
In the
and
river.
looking out in the
The
flow.
adventure has begun.
You're in the water.
All
Okay.
attentive and engaged.
Sorry?
All attentive and engaged.
That's it. Attentive and I mean, look at the attention levels today, right? I've heard almost everybody's voice except Manjula, Dinesh, and Alwyn, but just saying. But almost
We have
everybody
left the
spoke
band.
up. Yeah. Okay. Right. So our lives feel something like that, no? What have I studied? What am I doing? What's the connection? Okay. There's some text, you read it. If you want an explanation or expansion, I will give it. Now, what the activity here means could be a counseling session, could be a classroom session, could be an active, physically active session. So it all depends on what medium we're using. Yeah? Okay. This is key. I think sometimes the question we ask often is, do you want to learn anything? Or what is it you want to learn? Or you're in this classroom, how do you think this is going to be useful to you? And it doesn't matter if it's 2 hours or 2 weeks or 2 years. Just remember that intention to transfer is critical to transfer happening. Now, how do we do that? There is such a thing as a training environment and there's an application environment. They're often different. And there are only, it's like we can only do some things in the training environment. And when I say training environment, classroom, counseling, whatever it is that you do, the environment that you're having that conversation in is very different from the environment that they're going to apply it in. This is what a lot of educators did not understand when experiential, I remember in the 80s and 90s trying to sell experiential learning, and they're saying, what has trekking got to do with getting more marks? I said, maybe that's the mistake we tried and made, or we made, and we said, hey, you know what, it's not about marks. Oh, if it's not about marks, then we don't want it. Now we see that there is a link between what they do on the mountain and what they do in the classroom. Now, that intention to transfer is always affected. So if any of you are familiar with Kurt Levin's theory, okay, so it's that line again. The line divides what prevents or inhibiting factors and supporting factors. What is enabling people to do something and what's inhibiting them from doing it, and knowing what these factors are. This is critical to the transfer process, but curious question, how much of our work invites any conversation around this? Almost zero. Or we make certain assumptions. So I was having a chat with a young parent the other day, has a 3-year-old son. And he said, hey, I wanted to consult with you as to which school I should put my child in. And I heard about, I listened to his anxiety for about half an hour. And then I said, look, man, it doesn't matter which school. He said, what do you mean? There is Waldorf and there is Montessori, and then there is the SSC, CBSE. He said, you mean you're telling me that it doesn't matter? I said, no, it doesn't. He said, how come? He said, what you choose to do when the kid comes home is more important. How old is your kid? 3 years old. How many hours is he spending in school? How many hours is he spending at home? If your intention is to get your child indoctrinated, then send them to a punishment school. But if you want your child to be educated, then you need to do that at home. Okay, so inhibiting factors, whether it's a 3-year-old or a corporate executive, story is the same. And knowing those inhibiting factors and supporting factors is critical to application. So that flow of the river, it's got this white water. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you today was 2 models. One is this. This is based on Kurt Lewin, I don't know, you decide how you want to pronounce it. And the other one is in the adventure field. And I think this is a very interesting one because, I don't know, maybe I understand it a little more, I've experienced it a little more. So you got 3 kinds of transfer that we're talking about here: specific, non-specific, and metaphoric. Okay.
Vishwas, so the last model for the Kurt Lewin theory, we have this line: inhibiting factor, supporting factor. Okay, I get this point. So does the line shift? It's like the factors are on the both side, but how we see the shift of it.
The line doesn't move. I just like the wave in that, instead of having a straight arrow, I wanted a brushed arrow. But it also is indicative of what those forces are doing. Inhibiting factors hold you down.
Yeah.
Factors bring you
So
up.
I thought there's some place where the line goes straight like this when there are all supporting factors.
Oh, you can indicate it that way, yes. In fact, I've used this model in a different context of corporate training, where I got them to do waves and say, okay, what invites you to and what enables you to do something, and you get these peaks and troughs.
Okay, and you write all your drops and peaks like you're supporting. Okay, that I guess I would have understood better why the wave thing. I guess, yeah.
Great. Now you understand it.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay. So this is one way of looking at it, and the focus here is clearly looking at the environment that the intention is at play. Can I use the river metaphor? If there's a lot of white water, then you've got a bumpy raft. It's difficult to keep balance, and and very often when you are in white water, it's hard to get to a bank. Either banks. And these forces, so think of the inhibiting and the supporting factors opposing each other's forces, and those are the rocks in the river that are creating the turbulence and affect people's intention and motivation to move to the other bank. Yeah, Shashwat.
So as facilitators, do we want to mainly focus on the supporting factors, or do we also want to play a role inhibiting certain factors? Do we gotta play both of those things or focus on just the support?
Our job is to do what we can in the outer world.
But in relation to this inhibiting and
I'll
supporting,
give you an example. This corporate gig I'm supposed to do is, I'm guessing, going to hit a roadblock, because I've asked them that you seem to have great intention for people to transfer learning from this course or the training that we are doing back to the workplace. Wonderful. I love that. What are you doing in the workplace to enable them to be able to practice some of these skills? And you can't give me an answer like, oh, I'm going to be nice to them. Opportunities have to be created. Risks have to be taken. Risks will be taken. Learning is going to happen there. They're going to mess up. How are you going to respond to that? The workplace is going to be practice ground. It's not in the training room. You see what I'm saying? So the white water is their workspace. The bank is the classroom. Okay, so far? The river analogy is working for you?
what if the application and the training room are the same?
They're never the same.
I have a question on this, Vishwas. Let me just sharing in what I did.
Somebody one second.
Because, yeah, it's related.
Okay.
I kind of converted. For example, I had this whole training batch doing, they need to punch tickets and they need to learn how to do that. And there was a training environment, there was an application for, okay, so operations flows, exactly relating to what you're saying, what they learn, how are they going to apply, and what the application environment is. What I did was I reversed, and to Shashwat's question, is training environment equivalent to application? I reversed. I actually threw them on the, so analogy on the river, through those waters on the floor, trying to observe, making them learn it, what the others are doing first, come back to the training room. And there was a huge difference when that application environment was applied.
Stop.
I mean, if that makes sense.
That is a strategy that is proposed if you want transfer to happen.
Okay, because there was a vast difference.
Yeah, brilliant.
People on the floor were threatened because this batch knew much more and better than the ones who were already performing there. Because, yeah.
So what are you saying?
So application environment. So I'm not too sure.
They're never the
This is what
same. They're never the same.
Wow. Because I kind of created the application environment to be as the training environment.
But that was their training environment, right? Observing what the others.
No. I made them do it on the app. I made them do it in the floor.
Active experimentation.
Okay. Got my answer.
That's what you did. The trick is go back the next day and the next day and the next day when they don't have a training session and see if they're still doing it. So,
okay, but then that depends on what skill are you actually looking at the transference of.
Correct.
Because obviously if it's behavioral, it would be question mark. If it is hard skills, possible it's that they sustain.
Is it specific transfer or non-specific transfer?
Okay.
So Vishwas, in the corporate setting, one of the things I'm able to connect to in this previous force field analysis case is post a program, towards the end, we come up with something like, what's your plan of action? And amongst other things, one of the things we say is, what will help you to do this? And what may come on your way? And is there anything you can do to overcome it? I guess while it's all in their awareness right now, obviously there'll be other things which may come in the way, but I think I was able to connect to this in that manner. I just want to share that.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you know what? in my new understanding of the subject of transfer, I find that that's just all hogwash. Sorry. did that myself. Okay. And I thought that was it. And I added another piece where I would get them to write down their action plan, seal it in an envelope, and I would post it to them, snail mail, 15 days later. Right? And what's the point there? You may have forgotten. I'm going to be your conscience. But not once in any of those scenarios did I ever ask them or have the conversation with their bosses and the organization as to, you want them to do this, what are you going to do to enable them to do that? And and I've been doing that for the past 3 years. The funny thing, they have no answer. You know why? Like all classrooms, we want the student to take the responsibility of learning what I want them to learn in the way I want them to learn. So a math problem should be solved only in one particular way with 8.5 steps. You know what I'm saying? If some kid comes up with a brilliant idea, I'm not going to accept it because, I don't know, man. You get what I'm saying? And the moment you ask that question, it changes the dynamics completely. And just be careful because you might lose a client because they don't know. Nobody's told them that for transfer to happen, they need to create a conducive environment first. Okay. So, is it time for a break? Somebody remind me when we're ready. Kadambari?
Looks like no, I don't want to play. If there are any other people who want to take up.
Sorry?
If there anybody else would want to take that up, I don't want to play.
Compulsory break in what's the time? Okay, compulsory break in 15 minutes. Okay, so 3 kinds of transfer. And I like this particular model because it very nicely separates them out. Now let's look at it. So all that stuff's happening. So specific transfer is call centers, sequence of questions. I don't know if any of you have watched that movie, it was made years ago. It's called The Call Center. It's a 20-minute thing about somebody in Chennai working from his home. And it's just brilliant because he's the call center for 2 different things. In one, he's saving lives. In another, he's trying to sell something. And he kind of mixes stuff up and it's hilarious. You should watch it. Anyway, specific skills. Now, what does that mean? If you want to teach somebody how to do carpentry and to hammer a nail, we talked about this last time, remember? Yeah. So you want to build habits, associations, brushing teeth, folding clothes, all that stuff that our parents tried to teach us. By and large, habits and associations is specific transfer. So 2 years ago, I think it was, some of us decided to go for a trek. And yeah, I know you're smiling. And I said, You got to be able to carry your own weight. I mean, what's a trek if you've got a pony ride or whatever? You know, if you're going to sit on a pony, I mean, is that a trek? So we talked a lot about it, and I think people tried to climb the nearest mountain with a backpack and so on and so forth. Now that's a classic example of specific transfer. And people would ask me, what shall I put into that sack? I said, put rocks, it doesn't matter. It's the weight you're going to carry. Get a sense of that weight. Can you carry that weight up the mountain? Now, why? Because whatever they do in that practice, the intention is to transfer that to the trail, the real thing. Make sense? Give me examples of other specific transfers.
Like I'm just doing a fine art program for children online. So I think that's a specific transfer, because it's kind of how do I transfer? I mean, I could just do activities, but that's not my real thing. How do I transfer this? How do I teach them how to see things? How do I teach them how to understand what they how can they express themselves when they see things and stuff? That is what my specific transfer, I think related to that. It's a very, I mean, I couldn't do it all the time with everything. So I feel that's a specific transfer. Is it? I'm just thinking.
It doesn't sound like specific transfer to me.
But
I'll give you an example of specific transfer in art.
Okay.
Yeah. During the lockdown, I was learning how to draw faces.
Portraiture.
Yeah, something like that. And I was particularly interested in caricatures. Now, I went to YouTube and they showed me, and they said, draw a circle, draw a cross right in the middle. And I had not realized that that all our faces are really the bottom half of that. Yeah? Okay, now.
So that YouTube video did the specific transfer to you?
Wait. No, I'm not. So I learned how to do that. Then, what's the next thing I want to do? Get expression. Now, I could copy well. I could transfer the ability to do those eyes, nose, mouth, hair, whatever, okay? The moment it came to expression, all I needed to do was make one mistake, as I call it, and the expression of that character would change. But I have not figured out what the principle is. So it moved from specific transfer
General,
to non-specific transfer.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I got it. I mean, I just got it.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay.
Vishwas, being I have one thing. So when we have exams, so being competitive or studying in exams is some kind of transfer, or is a specific thing when we become competitive?
What about it?
Is it something like all of us have a kind of a specific transfer? If we do an activity or something, we always want a competition, which which right now I understand is not the healthy way. But what we are always been doing earlier, is it a kind of a specific transfer we have been, or we are transfer?
That conditioning, that competition is the only thing that can get people to pump adrenaline.
Yeah, so because I always have when I say these things to my colleagues or somewhere, I always get strong opposition comments on that competition is required for evolution. If competition is not there, we will not be progressive or move further. So I have been having a hard deal to counterpart it, but has it become our integral transfer, like, integral conditioning, which is like hard to overcome?
You mean theirs or yours?
Theirs, which I can't change.
You
It's
can't. You
like,
were like that once, remember?
yeah,
Right. And
yes,
you were
that.
talking about what changed you. And by the way, if somebody gives you this Darwin bullshit, sorry, please let them know that the survival of the fittest, that's not what he meant.
What he meant then.
He didn't mean dog eat dog. He didn't mean the more muscle you have, the more powerful you are, you eat the lower animal. That's not what he meant.
No, fittest can be intellectually as well, right? If we,
Well, you know what? If you want a Darwinian argument, please go and read what it meant, or go and read Alfie Kohn. I think I proposed it last time. Did I?
Alfie?
Alfie, Alfie
Okay.
Kohn.
Okay.
This Darwinian argument can be beaten so quickly, it's not funny. Anyway, so the issue is not that. The issue you're asking me is, okay, let's just say that that is just something, that's not transfer, that's just something they learned. No, they didn't learn, they were told.
So that is transfer, right?
No, I don't know. Yeah, sure, it's specific transfer. My teacher said this, so I'm going to say this.
So my point is conditioning a specific transfer, like what we are told and we do, what is comes in a habit, is it a specific transfer? It can be anything.
Also.
Like brushing a teeth, is it like a straightforward specific? Okay.
Yes, also.
Okay.
Yes, Monica.
So I have a question about non-specific transfer. And let's say I'm doing a high rope course and I'm a participant. And before when I'm sorry.
Monica, we haven't got there yet. Can I just
yeah.
can I do my PowerPoint thing? Okay.
So Vishwas, one question here. Doing a role play in a training program, can it be some form of a specific transfer? Learning, for example, doing something specific, which is quite...
A method, it is not transfer. You're just using a method to invite people to be able to transfer things. It is not transfer by itself. It is active experimentation.
So any hard skill taught like bike maintenance or canoeing strokes, that could be just specific transfers.
Yes.
Yep.
Tightening nuts and bolts. Yeah, sure.
I learned plant grafting last week. Plant grafting. So I guess that is also specific transfer, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So
Vishwas,
uh,
I see specific transfers as also a tool to build habit. Suppose like writing my journal, or not writing a journal, but just planning my day every day. So this is a recent thing which I started like last week itself. Does this building this habit of doing something slowly lead to a non-specific transfer that becomes a behavioral change? What do you think about it?
it could.
So in your earlier slide, is there a relation between the specific transfer and non-specific transfer and metaphoric transfer?
Yeah, it's all happening in the brain, right?
Yeah. Can you
I'll
go
give
to
you an
the
example.
can you go to the earlier slide?
I'll give you an example. Let's say you build habits and associations, right? Now remember, organizational flow is association. When this happens, do that. Right? all these technologies, when they were coming up, you remember there used to be really fat instruction manuals. Specific transfer, when this happens, do that. Associations being built. Okay, now let's just say that one of those associations was don't panic.
Okay.
Okay, and a lot of hardware manuals used to say that. Just because your monitor went off, don't panic. It's okay. Do 1, 2, 3. A non-specific application of or transfer of that particular association could be in relationships. Just because Amit doesn't understand this, don't panic.
Okay.
So one last question. So essentially, what differentiates specific transfer from non-specific transfer is the added layer of novelty, where we're using our existing skills to a new challenge that arises. Is that right?
Different. Not necessarily new, it can be the same.
Okay, got it. But a different situation.
Nuts and bolts on a bike and tightening nuts and bolts on a car. It's new, but not.
It's different.
Yeah, but it's different, right?
So then that means I'm going from specific to non-specific.
Yeah, so correct.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. We've got 1 minute. So here are some examples of specific transfer. Those who are in the outdoors will know that a clove hitch. In fact, I was going to tell you guys, please get a piece of rope. Can you guys do that next time? Get a piece of rope, string, whatever. Just pull one out from my bag. And I was going to show you what that means. So here's a string, right? Now I'm going to use, but those of you who are in the outdoors, where do you use a clove hitch?
Well, for anchoring, multiple purposes, for self-anchoring, anchoring a base, or many other purposes and such.
Great. Now, that is specific transfer. Give me a non-specific, now make some associations in your head and tell me where else the clove hitch could be used.
When you want to play a game of thief and a police, so you can just, attach the hands with the clove hitch.
Go on, tell me more.
Say if you're doing a raft builder exercise or a hut building and
construction. Absolutely. You see?
Lashing.
Right. So raft building is specific.
No, just lashing two pieces of wood. Lashing.
Yes. So that's the specific use of clove hitch, right? So that's the specific use we are always using for clove hitch.
Yes, but it kind of differentiates, meaning I learned it through learning outdoor skills from an instructor at NIM or wherever else. And then I say, wow, the clove hitch is a hitch. It's not a knot. Okay? Which means that what is the property of the clove hitch? It's a choke hitch. It tightens around whatever you put it around, which means I could now use it for hanging clothes. If I go traveling and there's a pole, but it's stainless steel and the normal knot is slipping, I use a clove hitch and it still works. Okay, now you have, it's still specific. Context is the same, but then I say, okay, we will come to that later.
Vishwas, before you go ahead, because last when you spoken about tightening the nuts and similar of Clovich as well, because that is one thing which I read. If you're using the similar scale in a different setting, it still becomes specific transfer. So
absolutely right.
okay, I just wanted to understand if that's
Yep. Yeah, I didn't want to go to the next stage.
Okay.
I attempted to differentiate, but we will differentiate a little later.
Okay.
So carrying logs on your back, if you're going to do a trek, so it gives you a sense of how much you're going to carry and so on and so forth. That would be very specific transfer. Okay? Learning spelling to be able to write an essay. Specific. Learning art to be able to draw better. Okay? Okay, go take a break. Whew. What, 10 minutes? Yeah. You want music? You want me to play some music? Okay. I saw at least one smile.
Yeah, I've been doing that in my sessions.
I know.
People are
Hey,
loving
by
it.
the way, Kaddu,
Bolo.
you know, it's hard talking to somebody who's like this.
Okay, okay. I was.
Wow. Thank you.
No, I was slouching in.
I know. Can I do? Let me try. Hi.
Okay. Got it.
Even I
Got the sarcasm.
Even I got it.
Oh, yes. Oh boy. Okay. Go take a break. We're going to play some music for you. Kaleo. Already here, no? I think he's already.
Kvöldið okkar og vorum var Glasgow. Við skulum tjalda í grænum berjamóum. Leitum með vínum í lundin frá í gær. Lindin þar niðar og virkir Ísland græn. Leikur í ljósum, lokkum og ángandi rósum. Leikur í ljósum, lokkum hinn vakandi blær. var þess rætast sem gistirinn vakla skó og hvað rauðu skinni á kræki lingislag. Kyrrðin fríðandi, mild og angurvær og leikur í ljósum, lokum og angandi rósum, leikur í ljósum, lokum minn vakandi blær. Leikur í ljósum, lokum og angandi rósum, leikur í ljósum, lokum hinn vakandi blær. Can't fight the temptation when you get the vibration. It won't do you no good. It won't do you no good. You better start rolling when you hear the man coming. It won't do you no good. It won't do you no good. No, we don't mind if you don't mind. 'Cause I'll never mind. Now let them all break you. Let the feeling come take you. It won't do you no good. It won't do you no good. And you know I got fever. So when you hit me right, you know you might as well. It won't do you no good. Say it won't do you no good. And I said, kiss your baby goodbye. Come on, love, it's alright.
क्या मियाँ जूनियर बहुत हंस रहे हैं.
बाहर मदर बाहर गई हुई है, इसलिए शरारत चल रही, फुल फ्रीडम चल रही.
वो स्पेसिफिक ट्रांसफर क्या होगा सोचिए आप. डंडा लेके मारेंगे. Okay, how's it going? Are you enjoying it?
Vishwas,
Yes.
my son, he had been to a clay modeling class, summer camp for 10 days. After that, he's a cricket player too. After that, he told his spinning got improved. Was it a specific or non-specific?
If that did that, then specific.
Okay.
We look at what non-specific is now.
Okay.
This is where it begins to get interesting. So in the context of clay work, what would be a transferable skill? What would be a example of non-specific transfer?
Isn't the example that was given exactly a non-specific transfer, like using it to spin a ball? That's a different situation, right?
Yeah, but it's still specific.
How so?
Can you repeat the question?
Give me an example. So Manjula was saying her son went for a clay workshop and he learned how to do stuff, and it improved his spin when he bowled.
Well, it's more of physical and characteristics. So the characteristics are in physical, and there is no underlying principle behind it as that needs to be applied elsewhere.
Association.
Yeah.
Habit association.
I had thought that it was non-specific actually.
So now you're the only one who can bring yourself out of it. What was there that to learn from clay work that you think he could apply somewhere else?
Patience?
Absolutely.
I would say trial and error too. Like sometimes you imagine something else and it turns out something else.
Good.
Creative skills?
Yeah.
Creativity.
Can do.
Observation.
Because it's the clay is given, he can do whatever he wants, like the creativity, like whatever is got, he can create anything.
Non-specific. The principle of being able to mold anything that he wants with clay being able to be transferred to somewhere else. Make sense?
Yeah.
This is when the fun begins, because this is where we could play a lot. And, you know, inherently our work with people in the context of behavioral science is around this. We've really got to understand this. And don't expect it to happen today.
Can I ask now my question?
Yes.
So I'm a participant on a high rope course, okay? And I'm extremely nervous. I can feel it totally in my stomach. And I'm going there and I'm completing it, okay? And then 1 month later, I'm standing in front of the public in a school and I feel exactly in the same way. And I'm making the connection that time I was able to overcome it, and now I'm also able to overcome it. Is that a non-specific transfer?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, am I right to say, Vishwas, that every specific transfer would have elements of non-specific transfer?
Of course.
Which we as
All
facilitators
activities,
would
everything in life.
kind of bring it out. Okay.
Everything in life that seems to begin. So, which essentially means that everything that they're teaching in school could potentially be used in order to build certain skills for life.
But for that, do I have to be aware of it, or can it just happen like that? Or conscious? Do I have to
Is
be
it
conscious?
is it the facilitator's responsibility to bring it out?
Absolutely.
True that.
That's our job. That's where our work begins. Anybody can teach 2 + 2. Yeah, come on.
Which was one question, yeah. So supposing when I was back many years back, I learned typewriting, and at that time really computers were not so much in as back 87. So in my 10th grade, it was 87, yes, 87 in my 10th grade. So I learned typewriting. If I had to give an exam, so I didn't do it in the context of, oh, am I ever going to be on computers? Although computers had just come in, but now I'm kind of and I never really used it on a typewriter much other than the exam and doing that. So now that I'm typing on a laptop or on a desktop or on a computer using my same typing skills, which are coming very naturally to me after so many years, and of course in a period of so many years. What is this? Is this uh, is this specific or non-specific? Because it was not aimed at learning at using it for a computer, but it because at that time that existence wasn't there.
Throwing a ball. Wait, hold on. Throwing a ball and throwing a spear. What would you call that?
Specific.
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 It's specific. Yeah.
Make sense?
So is it the connection between non-specific transfer and the isophobic metaphors in the kind of program design, and like maybe not directly in the language itself, but like I don't know how to put together, but
You can do non-specific transfer. You may have non-specific, intentionally do non-specific transfer, but it may not be metaphoric. But metaphoric transfer invariably is non-specific.
Vishwas, why do I feel that non-specific transfer are generally behavioral?
They are.
Like whatever the examples we are being used, like patience or the trust or anything, mostly it's behavioral.
Sure.
Can you give me example of non-specific transfer which is not behavioral and skill-wise?
Learning to belay and learning to rappel.
That will also be specific. You are using the ropes and the carabiner.
Absolutely right.
That's specific is what is given in the text.
Correct.
I want to know any non-specific transfer which is not behavioral. Specific is mostly skills.
Like if I can.
I don't know of anything else besides things we do and who we are.
So, like if I say that,
It's moving from what we do to who we are and allowing one to affect the other and seeing meaning of that. Eventually, just think about this. Machines can do almost everything that we can do, right? So, what's the differentiating factor?
Behaviors.
A domain of what they're calling artificial intelligence. What do you think they're trying to do?
make them think, make the
Emotions and
machines think, feel.
And they will be able to only do it up to a point.
Because we humans are very complex behaviorally. I don't think so AI can
Quite right. It's
ever reach
limited
that.
by who is teaching it and who the computer is observing.
Yeah. So it's like learning how to give first aid and responding in crisis, isn't it? Am I there?
Okay. Learning to give, so using first aid as a generic term, not tying bandages.
Yeah.
But if you understand the principles of first aid by doing a first aid course,
And yeah.
then being able to transfer it to emotional first aid would be non-specific. Or taking care of somebody because they're in a crisis would be non-specific.
Like how learning first aid or giving first aid, learning first aid and giving some first aids has helped me in responding in disasters or managing those disaster crisis situation in offices and all.
So the context of the transfer is people and social emotional rather than physical.
Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
One quick question, going back to the clay modeling example, would it be right to say that, let's say a child was taught how to make an elephant with clay and nothing else, but then the child figures out how to make a bird using the same clay? Would that be non-specific transfer?
Specific.
Same skills are being used.
Okay.
Also, Vishwas, going back to the first aid example, wouldn't be colliding with metaphoric transfer?
Not yet. Not yet.
I mean, you're not going there, but then the example that he mentioned, wouldn't he suit more in metaphoric transfer? No?
Well, the way he described it was metaphoric.
Yeah, that's why I said. That's why.
Transfer was not.
Okay.
Vishwas, my younger son had a difficulty in making friends actually, but then he started going for treks and this kind of cycling and all with unknown groups, like I mean from the school itself, but he didn't had any friends, nothing like that. After 2 years, uh, he's got friends actually. Is that non-specific?
My turn to ask a question. What is that?
I feel it's non-specific.
Good. Why? What is it he learned by going on treks?
Coping skills?
It wasn't left, right up a mountain, right?
No.
Good.
It was all uncertainties and
There you
coping
go.
skills.
And then learning to deal with all that.
Deal with all those.
Which he now learns, now he has friends.
So that skill he used it here. Whatever.
Correct. Are you getting it?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So we now know that before we do something And after we do something, stuff happens. And we can do something specifically before and after in order to improve or increase the associations that are being built. Okay? Now let's get into that bus. They're in the bus. They're going on a trek. Remember, in the end, enabling transfer is the facilitator's act of asking questions. It's not a thing that it's not a thing you put into somebody's brain. It's an act, deliberate act by the educator. So, Kadambari, in your case, 2-hour session, you walk in there, you said these guys are just there to hang around for 2 hours. If you ask them one of these questions, where might this be helpful? You're automatically taking them and getting them to think about how that specific training can be transferred to what they do. Racy.
Yeah.
The organizations that you work for may not want the same things as you do. So my question to you is, what will you need to do in order to succeed? In transferring what you're learning on this course.
Find a way.
Good. Find it. Tell me what you will do specifically. You don't have to tell me now, but so I could also then focus on dysfunction. I'm focusing on function right now and saying, okay, what can you do? But sometimes people don't know what's stopping them and they can't articulate it. And I think in counseling and therapy, very often they go to the dysfunction place because people often don't even see their dysfunction. So sometimes associations have to be made because they're just trying to protect themselves at that point in time. And that's preventing them from moving forward. And that's when
maybe because I was not capable enough at that time to understand them what I am trying to do, or maybe not skilled enough, or not. I was not prepared, and I had a fear in my mind that I will fail.
There you go. So now let's just look at that fear piece and say, okay, now you tell me you're afraid. What is it that really gets in the way?
My fear only that because I feel that I am not skilled enough. Like when you talk about capabilities.
So what?
So if I fail and the activity goes to a low.
Failure as?
My activity going to a low point, like where I'm thinking that it should.
So what?
Kids will not be happy and they will say that.
So what?
It will affect my feedback.
So what?
I might not get a program next time.
And then what happens?
I don't have a job.
There you go. You see where that fear comes from? It's not fear of performing in front of the kids out there and doing what you think should be done or is a good thing to do. It goes back to your fear. What's getting in the way is your fear of what people will think about what you do.
Yeah, that's the basic fear. Yeah.
Good. We just found it by asking a dysfunction question. What is it that gets in the way? It's about how I think about myself and what I portray as of myself and what people will think. I'm afraid of what people will think. And sometimes even when you do a good job, we are afraid of what people will think.
Yeah.
What did I begin today's session with? What was my question?
What did we
What did we decide for the past week?
And did you do it?
Yeah, we did have a session.
There you go. Which is why the first hour was so rich. I don't know, for me it was. Was it for you?
Yeah.
So I have one question. Maybe it is a silly question. Like these questions are.
Ask yourself a question, Madhu.
Are these questions for the facilitator to think of, or are these questions to pose to the group? Because I can see it being used in both the contexts. Like I can think of these questions for myself.
What I'm doing for you here is what you could do with your children.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? No?
Not completely clear to me.
What do you teach?
I teach maths.
Great. I'm assuming you taught something to somebody yesterday.
Yeah.
What did you teach them?
I taught them sequences,
Great.
pattern and sequence. Yeah.
Great. Do you think they understood?
Yes.
Okay. Then tomorrow, ask them this question. What do you think you will get out of doing sequencing? Now they're going to make associations. It's not just, oh, we'll get good marks. Oh, okay, let's go beyond that. What is the value of sequences? Now all your questions are there.
Yeah.
Those are examples, and you can use any one of them. Some kid who's not interested. Where do you think sequences might be useful? Until they can build that association, it'll just remain a piece of knowledge. It's building that context for them, helping them build the context of sequences in their lives. That makes sense now?
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
So this is when the ride begins. Okay? Just remember, it's a tool. Ropes course experience. Those of you who've done deep, and we do the wall, the climbing wall. Classic example of metaphoric transfer. You got those holds. They keep you up and you hold on to them. Same behaviors in the context of, let's say, investments or goals in life. We hold on to them. We hold on to people. You've got a rope, you've got a harness, you've got a rope, you've got somebody holding the rope at the other end, seeing that you don't fall. Somebody is holding you up and seeing that you're safe. Who is that person? I think there is, isn't there? I think there is a 4-minute video in YouTube where I think I talk about that. Yeah. So I think I've explained it there. See if you feel like going and looking at it. I think it's there. Yeah? Maybe put that. Yeah, we're putting that link in the chat if you feel like you want to have a look at it. And then there was an audio file where hey, these are just some of the things I just loved. Okay, so it's Preeti, it's that same. Yeah, I understood it when I explained it to myself. It was that moment. So I think Shashwat's got that river and facilitation thing. If you can put it up in the chat at some point, that'll be great.
I also have it. How do you put it in the chat? I have that river, your voice.
Oh yeah. The same one. How do you put it into chat? Just copy the URL and put it there or whatever.
Okay, it's in my phone. I'll forward to the Slack, I guess, maybe.
Super.
Yeah.
Did I tell you that story? Okay, here's the story. I was doing this thing for young people, young leaders, way back, and there was this guy who was, I think, all of 22, and he had 6 sisters. And he came on a 5-day camp in the outdoors, and we wash our own plates at the end of every meal. He never ever in his whole life of 22 years ever washed his own plate. He did that for 5 days, and he went back home and he started doing it, and his mother and sister said, "What's wrong with you?" And his sister, whom I didn't know, called me and said, "I don't know what you guys did, but this guy is washing his plates." I said, "Is that it?" And she said, "No, he's also behaving a lot more responsible." Now you've got example of specific and non-specific transfer in the same story. You get that? So the stuff we do, we have no idea where that person on the raft, where they're going to land on the bank and which bank and where are they going to really use it. We have no idea. And you get to know this only through stories. So the answer is, you will never ever really know. But can we then enhance the process and enrich it so much that at every point before, during, and after the experience or our time with them, we are, helping them make connections.
Vishwas, my son wanted to cook one day chicken actually. Then he really went and got it and he cleaned it and he cooked actually. Till then he was thinking it's just a half an hour job and like he used to talk like that. What is that? You can just do it like that. And from that day onwards, he's more empathetic towards cooking and my job.
There you go.
he literally did everything on that day. And after that,
is that specific or non-specific?
Both.
What is the specific?
Specific, he learned how to cook. I don't know.
What's the non-specific?
Becoming empathetic.
I mean, how does cleaning and buying a chicken teach him empathy? Can you imagine? That's crazy, no? But there's a connection. You've noticed it.
Now he doesn't talk like that.
See? That's a classic non-specific transfer.
Okay.
And the thing is this, anything that we teach, how can we get or enable our audiences to make that non-specific transfer? Because specific transfer is easy. Brush your teeth, brush your shoes.
This was not expected. I mean, this outcome was not expected actually, non-specific transfer.
Good. Know that what we can try as much as we want, and we might try and teach empathy through an activity on a program, but they might apply it or learn it in a completely different way in their lives. Their sibling starts crying, and for some strange reason, maybe they dealt with a crying friend on the trek, and that transfers to feeling empathetic towards their sibling, who otherwise they're fighting with.
It's a very interesting. There's an interesting story which I can share in case I could remember.
You got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that first time I went to buy chicken. Okay, and I saw chicken being slaughtered in front of my eyes. I didn't eat chicken for 2 days. Nah. But how it was facilitated later, I became non-vegetarian. It was okay for me. If that facilitation would have been different that time, things would have been, my dietary habits would be much, much different for sure.
Yeah, and that might change.
Yeah, possibly.
You just got to find a different guru.
Yeah.
Vishwas, I have a question.
Yes, Olga.
Yeah, metaphoric transfer, I'm trying to make sense of it. Can this be seen as a tool that facilitates transfer or other transition from specific transfer to non-specific transfer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you can teach them mathematics in the class for them to pass an exam, specific. You can teach mathematics for them to be able to solve problems, non-specific. We use metaphors as a tool.
And these questions also seem like good reflective questions as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, okay, let's just go through this. How much time do we have?
So, what happens if a metaphor crashes and burns? Like when they go about and they literally are like, I will never be in that situation. Then what? Like, how do you make your metaphors solid?
There is no such thing.
Yeah.
This whole metaphor thing is really fuzzy-wuzzy because it has something to do with your experience of life, your ability to visualize, their experience and their ability to make connections. So it's all unknown territory. So there are some classic methods that you can use. And sometimes it has to do with not, so for example, okay, we'll come to it. Does that answer your question? Did you ask it because you knew what was coming next? See, that's how it works. Trust the process. So asking them, okay, so what is math similar to? And they will build the metaphor for themselves. And they'll say, for me, maths is this, for me, maths is that. And then you've got all this. So that's the transfer the responsibility and empower your students approach in facilitation. If you don't know the answer, you can get it. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm discovering today through this conversation with you guys, there's no way I could have articulated this. But I just sat here and I said, okay, I know something about it. I've used it. Here's the structure and form and sequence that makes sense. Let's try it out and see what they do with it. Tanya? That's the answer you had a question about retrospective, right? I don't know. Is this cheating? You guys are asking the questions that my PowerPoint already has.
I think that's active experimentation.
Sorry?
Active experimentation. You threw us beforehand and then you're explaining the theory.
So Hiteshi, this is where many of us fail. We come with a metaphor in mind, and then they don't get it. You crash and burn. Yes, Monica.
I have a silly question.
Are all your questions silly?
So I just don't understand. This line is like, it can also be used in a fifth and sixth generation of facilitation.
Monica, answer my question. Are all your questions silly?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think your questions are silly at all?
I don't think so, but sometimes when I feel that they might be very obvious for others, I get a sense that they might be silly.
Are there other places that you think your questions are silly?
Yeah, for sure.
Give me an example of where you have felt similarly.
Maybe in a school years ago.
Okay.
Or when I have to speak public.
Okay. What do you think I just did?
You just introspect me to get a better understanding that my questions are not silly at all.
No, Oh, if that's what happened, that's brilliant. Transfer has happened. But the point is this, that I was moving you from specific to non-specific. So now you're making connections. And metaphors can be a tool. Yeah, sorry if I interrupted you, but that was intentional.
So I would like to know, it can also be used in a fifth and sixth generations of facilitation. And before was a third and fourth.
You don't know my PowerPoint?
Vishwas, did you have notes for this also? Then the PPT is not read, but the notes are read.
No, I don't think I did. Okay, look. I'm not answering any questions on this one. Give it a little time. Don't be in a huge rush. And we don't have time today, but I could tell you a story about isomorphic frames, which is mind-blowing. It was for me. And some of you have heard it.
You can ask Chi to record it and then put it on Slack.
I will tell you the story next time. Okay, so here it is. How do you differentiate? How are the questions different? I'm just going to take that example of carrying a heavy backpack. What would be a non-specific question?
Where else it can be used? Sorry, non-specific.
What is the use of this?
What happens when
Why
you
are
are
you carrying
carrying?
a heavy backpack?
What happens when you are carrying heavy load?
That's a metaphoric question.
Okay, I'm not going to say yes or no because the next click will bring you there. But try it.
What else you can carry now?
Okay.
Like, can you take heavy loads on your back now? You can lift heavy things.
Is that specific or non-specific?
Endurance. So now
What
what
do you
happened after you had the heavy backpack? What you gained after you gained the endurance now?
Are you telling them or asking them a question? Huh?
What did you gain after
What is the
the
point?
heavy? What? What?
Somebody help her?
Why are we carrying this?
Where else you felt in that way?
What are the other backpacks that you carry in your life?
The danger is we don't move away from the backpack. Okay, so what would be a metaphoric?
What carrying a backpack reminds you of?
Okay. Varun, you keep diving into that river, it feels like. You just kind of, you're whoop, out again.
What is carrying a backpack equivalent to in your life?
Interesting. Have you now? Do you see the separation? Okay. For the next session, do you want me to give you an article to read, or are you just going to do some random reading?
Please tell us what to read.
Give article to read.
Please give.
What does that tell me about you?
We are deep in the water. All over it is water.
No, we like
Trying
to
to swim off.
touch your shore all the time. We like to move towards to your shore. We feel comfortable there before going there.
Right, Tanya, you heard that?
We want to come up and breathe and then go back again.
You want to come back to my bank and say, hey, get lost. We got 2 more sessions. You're going to be, I'm going to, so next session, you're going to be in.
Only? There are only 2 sessions more? You think 2 sessions will be enough? We just started, begin to swim.
Sweetie, you've done deep, you've done everything else possible, and you keep asking me that same question. Nothing is ever enough.
Because now, just to give an example of the wall hanging 3 years later, today I've been able to move a bit ahead through where I was on that wall. Remember how I was stuck on the wall halfway through and you asked me questions, do you want to remove the blindfold? Do you want somebody else to help? And all those questions are coming alive now after 3 years. Now I've moved a little ahead.
So you're never going to be out of white water. It's never a smooth flowing river. Okay, get lost. Bye. I hope you had fun today.
Vishwa, story.
Huh?
Story.
Story today? Sure?
Article, Vishwas.
Article I will give, but story today?
I want to listen.
Right. So there's this organization with its headquarters in the US. This is a real story, okay? They find that their European offices, 9 of their European offices are not doing very well. And they've tried, they've done everything possible. They can't do it, and they get an experiential educator like us and say, what can we do? Now, I'm not going to tell you that conversation because I don't know it. I can only tell you what happened. So you've got these guys, 9 guys in 9 European offices. They don't know each other. And this happened in the days when people carried briefcases. Okay? So that's about 20, this was not, I think it was 91 or 92, anyway. And one day, every one of them gets a letter. Remember, this is snail mail, right? Gets a letter, an envelope from the boss, and it contains a letter and it contains an air ticket. And the letter says, enclosed is the air ticket, be on the flight. When you get into the flight, when you get off the airplane, you must be wearing a Roman tunic. You know what a Roman tunic is? You know the skirt? Yeah. And bare-bodied, of course. And of course, it's the big boss, so they get onto those flights, and that's all it says. And so they get onto the planes, they land at, they find that they've landed at Heathrow Airport, London. They get off the planes, and of course, they're in their Roman tunics. And can you imagine what it's like for somebody in a Roman tunic walking around at an international airport? Anyway, they're told to meet at the meeting point, which is a yellow arch. They go to the meeting point and they discover that there are other guys wearing Roman tunics. Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you in a Roman tunic? Same question to you. Oh, you're in the so-and-so office. Hi, how are you? Now you've got these guys in Roman tunics with briefcases and roll-ons and stuff, right? You got to imagine all this. Anyway, somebody is watching them. When 9 of them turn up there, this stewardess goes up to them and says, "Gentlemen, please follow me." He walks them through narrow corridors to a small door somewhere which opens out onto the tarmac. There's an aeroplane waiting there. Opens the hatch. These guys go in. She shuts the thing. The engine starts. The door between the pilot and the cabin is shut. And suddenly they're in another airplane, just 9 of them. Half an hour later, it lands at an unknown place. It's getting dark. It's cold. The only light on the tarmac is the air traffic controller. The plane lands. They get out with their luggage. The door is shut. The plane takes off. It's cold. It's dark. The only light at the air traffic controller shuts off. If you were one of them, how would you be feeling?
Used.
Mm-hmm. Is that
Terrified.
it? Terrified?
Terrified, scared.
Scared.
Anxious and angry.
Angry. So now they're on the tarmac, it's cold, it's windy, a drizzle begins. And this is England, okay? Suddenly at a distance, they see a light come on. That's the only light that they see. So they walk towards it and find that it's a log cabin. Beautiful log cabin. They open the door, they go in. Now they're getting warm. They're angry, they're confused, they are terrified. And of course, there's a lot of chatter. Now they're discovering that they have similar stories, just an envelope from the boss with an air ticket and instructions. They notice that the log cabin is lined with food and warm clothing and all kinds of stuff. So they say, oh, okay, at least we've got some food and there's a fireplace and there's wood to burn. It's dark by now. On the table, pinned with a knife, you got to imagine this, okay, is a note. They say, we find the note. And the note says, 232 degrees is an airport. A plane will land 7 days from now at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Be there. What are you thinking now?
Is this some kind of prank?
Uh-huh.
Angry, hungry.
Now you're angry. You're getting angrier, right?
Angry.
What the hell? I'm the head of an office, a country office. How can you treat me like this? I don't even know where I am. Okay. So anyway, they sleep well. They wake up the next morning, first light. They look outside. They walk outside. And now, how do you know 232 degrees? You see, this is where the fun begins. Now you've got to build skills to figure out what is 232 degrees. Anyway, so at 232 degrees, assuming that, so there is something called true north. 232, so true north is what? What degrees?
Zero.
And 360.
360, yeah.
Southwest,
0 and
right?
360.
So approximation.
Talking about southwest.
Somewhere you'll be around 11 o'clock by the clock. If you look at the clock hands, yeah?
Yeah.
They look in that direction, and at a great distance, they see land. And what's in between?
Water.
There's nobody else on the island. They've got a week to get there. What do you think? So here's your homework.
You have to build a boat.
Good. And what does building a boat require?
Something floatable, wood.
Good. What else?
Ropes.
Rope.
Good.
Something to tie it with.
You see, you're falling into the exact trap that they fell into.
So what, you can swim and go?
I don't know. What is the trap?
That you have to build a boat?
Following instructions. You're chasing around.
This is the trap that all educators fall into as well.
Oh, like they have to reach there. They can just chill and treat it as a vacation.
Yeah,
Is
and
this
then
the
what
trap?
happens in a week?
They're still there.
From that direction, from that direction, plane might come here if they're still there.
And if it doesn't? Oh God, you just fell straight into it. Okay, I didn't realize it was possible to do this in 2 dimensions. But thank you for letting me know. Now I know I can do the same thing that I usually do that some of you know about. I set the trap and your job is to?
Fall into it.
Fall into it. Nice. You fall into it. Now here's your homework. Madhvi, please put it out on Slack if I forget. Your homework is to find out why did they decide to put this group through this experience?
Because they follow directions blindly without
Make them uncomfortable.
See how they perform in.
Displace them completely.
I said that your homework because right now you're going to go all over the place. I want you to think about this. And it's also a classic example of what I believe is called an isomorphic frame. Have fun. I hope you will be there to catch that flight 1 week from now. You see the isomorphic frame? Oh, I love this.
What shall we read?
I will put it up by tomorrow. One article. You decide how you're going to do it.
Also, YouTube link for last session and this session, if you can. Generally.
Yeah.
Video upload.
Yeah, we've done it. I'll give you the link tomorrow. We've had, I think, YouTube, there's been some trouble in granting permissions or something like that. So I'm going to put it in a folder and share that folder with you.
Cool.
Madhvi, is that what we decided to do?
Yeah.
Okay, I will do that. So S1, S2, S3, up to this session will all be there. Okay?
Vishwas,
Oh, happy Diwali. Oh, by the way.
there's no class next Friday.
Yeah.
Oh.
How will I catch the flight?
My flight is delayed, I guess.
I'm giving you 2 weeks.
Sleeping on this for 2 weeks. Oh my God.
Have any of you joined AEE?
What's that? Oh, me.
Okay.
I'm volunteering. I've registered and I've joined.
Nice. So see you at 9:30 next Saturday.
I have to go 9:30 today as well. It's my volunteering workshop.
9:30 next Saturday is my closing address.
Yeah, I saw that. I searched you the first thing.
Easy to find.
Yeah.
Have fun. Bye.